What is going on, cyberspace land? Welcome to the HyperPixel Podcast. I am MichaelK, and I am joined today across the cybernetic webs of inner tubes by the one and only XERAEN. How are you doing today, X?
I am quite excellent, Mr. MichaelK. How are you doing, in fact?
Man, I'm hanging in there. So
yeah?
I'm just going to start this podcast off by saying, so last week I strained my voice a little bit. So it has been an interesting past week, really, and just trying to take it easily vocally. So I'm not going to be as over the top, amped up to 88 miles an hour the whole time, the whole podcast, whatever. I'm probably going to let XERAEN do a lot more talking than.
So what you're saying is. So what you're saying is you need to turn Ric Flair mode off.
That is correct. That is absolutely 100% correct, because believe it or not, I am almost 99% certain the thing that sent me over the edge last week was not while doing anything vocally at all, really. It was just while playing drums, I got a little too excited because I was playing something really difficult and got it. And yeah, so yeah. It's unfortunate, but
we've all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there, absolutely. But yeah, so we will we'll recover from this and continue to move forward here. So,
excellent,
XERAEN.
Yes, sir.
What's going on in Sector X? How are things?
Man, it's pretty good. I've been doing a bit more with video editing and graphics editing, etc. We have a website for this podcast now, and the astute observer will see that I got to figure out how to point in the right way. I don't know. It's either right there or right over here. I don't know. It's one of those two.
I think the one that you pointing to your right is the correct.
Okay, so it's over there. HyperPixelPodcast.net. That will take you straight to it. That has embedded on it the playlist from YouTube of all the videos of the podcast. Or if you're an oral person who likes the ears tingled directly with no visual stimuli, there is the link to the Apple podcast. There's the link to the Spotify podcast. What is not there, though, however, are the links to Google and Stitcher. The reason why is because I couldn't find a good embed for Google. But if you just search on Google Podcasts, if you use that HyperPixel Podcast, you'll find it. Same with Stitcher. So yeah,
sweet.
There's also links to our individual link tree pages, whatever, and that will get you all of the places where our faces exist in the cyberspaces, as you may want to see or avoid.
Write that down.
Right. So yes, that's new. So I've worked on that. And I mean, just busy working on the stuff we were doing, trying to make progress and to figure out what the new frontiers are for us to pioneer and to, forge paths and find paths through. Been very motivated lately, which is really cool. Which is a stark awesome contrast, from the past year. I've had a weird year of lack of motivation, which is not unsurprising. I mean, that just kind of happens in life. You have those periods. But I can see how I'm turning a corner across that. The big thing is, it's one of those things. I don't want this to become a self-help podcast or something, which nothing wrong with that. But, motivation is one of those things you just can't rely on. You just have to do. Yeah. But it's hard to overcome that barrier when you don't have the motivation to start that cycle of discipline. And that's what I think that I'm finding now is that it's it's a chicken and egg thing, but really the discipline can jumpstart the motivation. And that's what I think I'm getting at right now, is that I've sat down, made myself do some things, and then I'm well, this is kind of fun. And then I want to do it because it's fun. And then it's you get into a routine of it, and then you just kind of, it's positive feedback loop in that way. Yeah. So good. So, or great, actually, I would probably characterize right now as how things are going certainly as far as productivity and just doing things in the sector, as it were.
Very cool.
How about you? How's it going? And we don't even have a name for the MichaelK layer because Rikers is the hacker hanger,
right?
But
that exists way off, in 100 years in the future. So
right, it's over down the street here.
Right. you'll have to tell him I said hey.
Oh yeah. Oh man,
I'd love to know how he's doing. I haven't seen him in a long time.
This dude, like, you thought I was like, mad scientist in a laboratory sort of archetype. This dude's like deep in it right now. I don't know what he's doing. Like,
oh man,
I don't even see him all that much these days, but I'll let him know you're asking.
That's good to hear. So, yeah, things are good here. So I was actually, I went to this like it's like an antique flea market thing. I know like the whole flea market thing is it's debatable what actually like a flea market is, but kind of in this
place where you go buy fleas, duh.
Right. But so this antique place that I went to, it's like a big place and it has like a bunch of booths, and different people own the different booths.
Wait. Did you say a bunch of booze?
Booths.
Oh, okay.
And so each booth is owned by a different person, and it has like a different theme, different things that are in it, whatever. So some of the booths have like older tech or older video games, older movies, the older things that I'm into. So this will come into play in a few months here once we get caught up on all our vocal cover list. But so I picked up two beautiful classics here by Mr. Bolton himself. So
I was going to say that one on the left I'm highly familiar with. My father had it. I may have given it to him at some point. I don't know, awesome. For a gift.
Yeah, these were $1, and I just was like, "Yep, those are coming home with me." Those will come into play later on in the story.
That's amazing.
I also walked out of there with this translucent blue little tiny baby CRT, which literally serves no purpose whatsoever, but it looks really cool next to the green one. So here we are. And I was not going to buy it. I posted a story on Instagram about it. I was like, I was not going to buy this thing. I had decided this is ridiculous. I don't need this, even though I think I do. I don't need this. There's no reason for me to get this. And then I literally received several messages from people that said, buy it. And about the same time, I realized that booth actually had a sale on everything in their booth. Like 20% off or something like that. So it's like, oh, frick. Well, I guess I'm leaving with this little TV then. So
a couple questions I have about that, because I saw that and I was like, oh man, that thing's sweet. One, does it work?
I actually tested it last night. I have to get a converter for it. So it has like a mini antenna port. It's like a mini. It's like a 3.5 millimeter port, specifically for like an RF input.
Okay, yeah.
So I just have to. I already ordered a converter for it. It's like a little thing that converts 3.5 millimeter to a coax.
Like the screw thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. I never thought there would be some need for such a
strange. I've never seen something like that before. But yeah. So hopefully that'll work. I did turn it on last night, and it's got the snow on it, so that portion of it works. So we'll see if an actual input works on it.
The other question, I guess, I'm assuming it's color, right?
No, it's actually black and white.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which it was manufactured in 2000, so I'm kind of surprised it's black and white. Right? Yeah.
Well, that's wild, dude.
Yeah.
Like. I really did not think that they were still making black and white TVs then.
Right. Yeah. But,
oh, man.
Here we are.
Strange.
Well, as crazy as that is. So anyway, I'm going to hopefully the converter will work and I can take some really cool picture of like the green one and the blue one together.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Oh man. What you should do is get like a signal splitter and play like the same game on both of them at the same time.
So I have a thing that it's getting made. It's like this custom made. It's one of those retro gaming things that's like a made to order kind of situation.
Okay,
so
yeah.
You buy it, and then dude has to like craft it with his hands.
Right.
But it is and this is so ridiculous. As much
like the MIDI NES back in the day.
Right, exactly. As much effort as it took for me to get everything in my setup on RGB. So what this converter is it's like a little, you plug a SCART like RGB cable into it, or like it has a few different inputs, and it'll output composite and S-video. So,
it's like you would think there's no market for this, right?
Exactly.
Like there can't be a market for this.
Yeah, but here we are in the year 2021. I'm buying such a ridiculous thing. So that actually it'll output 2 of those at once. So
nice.
I'm gonna have one of those going over there to the green TV, and then split off to the blue TV, and then I have another TV. That has S-video that I plan on hooking up over here so that I can, when I'm streaming, I can play on it. So,
okay. Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, as nice. Just ridiculous as that is, here we are.
So you're approximating the reality that you want, which is having the PVM, right?
That's correct. Someday that'll happen, but dude, like those prices have just literally over the past year have doubled.
Oh man.
And like that. if I had gotten one when I learned about them, it would have been like, $30-$50 or something for one of those 20 inchers. But now it's like,
oh man,
the 20 inchers are selling for like $1,000.
That's like, there's a specific Magic card that was in a deck. So like the last time I was like seriously playing, there was a deck called Death Shadow, where basically you wanted to I don't want to get too deep into it, but basically you wanted to reduce your own life total as low as possible while still staying alive as quickly as possible, because it enabled this creature to be really big if you did that. And so you could get like a really big creature like turn 2, and like that's you win the game probably. But there's a card that to do that you have to like go through a lot of cards real quick, and that's a lot of what Magic is how many cards can you look at as quickly as possible in the game and be able to take into your hand.
Interesting.
Right? Because like if you're only just drawing one card a turn, I mean that's not very powerful, and if you're in a powerful format, that's not going to work. So there's this card called Mishra's Bauble that it costs 0 to cast it. And basically, you can look at you or your opponent's top card of the deck just to get information, and then you get to draw an extra card the next turn. And so, since you don't have to pay for it, like basically, it reduces your maximum deck size from 60 to 56.
Interesting. Okay.
Right, because you can put 4 copies of it in there. Anyway, at the time, I was like, I didn't really want to spend $6 a card in Magic Online to get this, but I really wanted to play this deck. So I did. I spent the $24, and like now it's like absolutely ridiculous. Like that card goes for let's see. I was looking the other day. I'm like, is that card really that much? Let's see. Mishra's Bauble is $38.87 each.
Bruh.
So it's like I have this playset of 4 of them, and it's like I paid $24.
That's
and now
wild.
You can't even get one for $24. That stuff is like, I hate when that happens, because you just never know when that's going to happen. Because the reality is what happened was people realized that there's no color to this card. You could put it in any deck. So basically it can reduce any deck in any format it's legal from 60 cards to 56 cards. So it's like, why not?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. So it's the same sort of thing. And it's like, that's in a small market. Now imagine a market. Well, I guess maybe people wanting PVMs is probably a similarly sized market. Although I would bet that's actually getting bigger day by day.
Yeah, I don't really know where it's coming from, honestly, because I don't really think anything's necessarily changed over the past few years. Like, I have no idea. And there's like a lot of really good upscalers and stuff coming out. So you'd honestly think the demand for it would be going down. I have no idea.
Well, it's the whole aesthetic thing, I think, to a degree. Because people want the real, and in their mind, that's more real than using the really good upscalers and playing on a 1080p flat screen or whatever.
Right.
Flat screen. I'm not even now showing my age. TV. It's called a TV these days, guys.
Same thing. Yeah, and like there are a lot of really cool Twitter accounts that do comparisons between the two, like showing a picture of something upscaled 5x, 1080p, whatever, and then on a PVM, and it's wild to see how these pixel artists would do this art with the expectation that it was going to be blurred a little bit.
So when it's not, it doesn't look that great.
Yeah. So like one that comes up all the time is Symphony of the Night, the Castlevania game for PS1. Mm-hmm. There's like, I want to say it's a picture of Dracula, like when he's talking, his like avatar or whatever, when he's talking, his like, headshot. It has like, his eyes are like all white and has like this little red, just one like red pixel in the middle of his eyes. So if you're looking at it, like crystal clear pixels, it's like, oh, that's kind of scary. But if you look at it on like a CRT, it looks just kind of like, he has eyes, and then it's just kind of like blurred red in his eyes.
Yeah, like a subtle glow or something.
Yeah, like that. So stuff like that it's very interesting to see.
Well, yeah, it's amazing that there's clearly that kind of intent in the art, right? It's not like just an accident. It's like, no, they meant to do that.
Right, exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Super crazy.
Yeah, so anyway, that needs to be a whole podcast itself, talking about like fluctuating prices on things where you're like, that costs what now?
Frick. Yeah, definitely. Before we dive into our topic here, I just want to mention this very quickly. So I haven't told you about this, but I discovered this website. Right now they only have a phone app for this, which I hate. I wish there was actually a website for this. I'm sure at some point when it gets, the team gets a little bit bigger, then they can, invest the time or whatever. But so it's called Whatnot. So it is basically like a live stream, like, a Twitch or YouTube live stream or whatever, but mixed with eBay. And so somebody will have like a show, and all they do in the show is they just kind of like hang out with the people in the chat, and they have an item, and then this is the item that we're selling right now. And then there's just like a bid button on it, and you bid. And then,
so it's kind of like a quote unquote live auction.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is a live auction.
Okay.
Quote unquote. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's pretty cool.
it's pretty cool. And it's specifically for like nerd culture stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
So
that makes a lot of sense.
Cards,
sure.
Games, figures, like action figures and stuff like that. So it's just like full of all kinds of stuff like that. And it's one of those things where you can get like really good deals on it, but you can also just get totally reamed on it. If the whole bidding war thing, because it's like, it's this mentality where you bid on something and then you've decided it belongs to you at that point.
Right.
And it's like, screw this guy. Oh, bid. And then suddenly, you've paid way over what the thing is worth. So you got to be careful in that aspect. But I mean, it's a pretty cool idea. And like, it works very well. The thing that gets you though is, I don't know how they have this shipping deal worked out, but shipping is usually around $4 for the first item, and then $1 for every additional item. So I have no idea what kind of deal they've worked out with that to make that possible. But yeah, so basically if you get one thing, then you're just paying $1 shipping for every extra thing. So
that's wild.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of questions about that, but we'll be here for a long time.
Right.
It's a cool concept. I think that's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like things that make you rethink about things like that. So we all have our conceptualizations on what it's like to buy things, and eBay throws that in the air because like most people didn't really do auctions before eBay. And then now everybody kind of knows what an auction is and how it works and all that kind of stuff. And then it's like, this is kind of turning it on its head yet again in a different kind of way. So that's interesting.
Right. Yeah. So pretty cool. We can discuss a little bit more about that later. But so diving into the topic at hand here. So continuing what we started last week, the slots 4, 5, and 6 of our top 6 favorite games. So XERAEN, you're going to go this week, and you're gonna whatever you've crafted inside your brain hole about how you're going to talk about this. So for me, it was just kind of like honorable mentions basically for the top 3. But yeah, so tag.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but it's like ranking stuff sucks. Like really, really bad sucks.
I hate it.
Yeah, and I am the kind of person who likes so many different kinds of things that it's hard to compare the things directly to each other. Like, for example, music. Like, I will like one band for one reason and another band for another reason. Was like, do I like this one more than that one? There's no comparison there. It doesn't make sense to compare. So ranking in a lot of this stuff is just feels bad, man. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but that being said, as a preface, I'm also going to cheat twice as much as you did. So this is a relative to video games. So I have to one up you.
You are a cyberspace hacker, so.
Right, exactly. So not only am I going to like not really rank these today, I'm going to pick 4 instead of 3.
I like the way you think, XERAEN.
So then the reason is that I had to pick something that's like a real classic to me video game, because otherwise it wouldn't be on the list and I would feel bad that I didn't pick one. And for that slot, we'll go with that slot first. And I don't know how I came up with this. I literally was in the shower and this one occurred to me. I was like, I need to talk about this game. And there's a lot of games that, like, when we get done recording this, I'm going to be like, man, I should have had that one, or man, I should have picked that one. Forever we'll think that about it. But
same. We can at some point we can revisit this and talk about the honorable mentions to our honorable mentions, and I don't know, just turn it into some weird ridiculous thing. Because top
100,
100% same. Like, there are so many games that I wish I could have talked about, but you know.
So this game is cool because on its surface, it looks like one kind of game, but it's really a different kind of game. But it's so much fun, and it's classic game. Anyway, I'll just get into it. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for the NES.
Okay.
So
okay.
I don't have props like you did. So what I'm going to do is when I edit the video, I'll just like put in somewhere around here the covers of the games. So Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and not Punch-Out, mind you, not Punch-Out for the NES, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Don't tell me this is the same game. I know this, they just changed the sprite and they blah, blah, blah. No, it's a different game. IMO is a different game. There's no such thing as Mr. Dream.
Exactly. It was a dream.
Right, exactly right. So this game, it looks like it's a arcade boxing game. It's not. It's a puzzle game. It's a puzzle reflex game. That's all it is.
Man, I never thought about that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And that's why I like it so much, is because I really like puzzle games. I like puzzle games, but I don't play games that are just explicitly puzzle games, usually. Although some more of this list may tell you that's not true, but whatever. So Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is really cool because you have a limited set of things that you can do, and figuring out what that limited set of things you can do, like if you don't have like the manual, and most of us as kids when we play these games, let's be real, most of us didn't read the manual before we play the game. We're just like, rip the game open, put it in the console, turn it on, let's go, and just figure it out as we go. Figuring out how to do what in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is so mysterious in a way, because, for example, knowing that you need to hit up to punch toward their head versus just hitting the button to punch toward their stomach, it's not clear that that's exactly what's happening until you see, and there's brilliant ways of the game telling you that this is how it happens, is the characters block differently, right? And it's like, when you see that, you're like, oh, something's different here. And I know that's kind of like basic game design stuff or whatever, but it's like, at the time when you're a kid playing this game, you haven't played a whole lot of video games. Yeah. Like, this is literally the second video game I've ever played in my life. The first one is Super Mario Brothers, and then Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
I mean, like, I think there's something to be said about that kind of game design way back then, where they found ways to teach you how to play the game without just, plastering in front of your face, like in Super Mario Brothers. I mean, one of the first things you do is you learn how to jump, because if you don't
Right.
jump, the Goomba's going to kill you.
Exactly.
You know? And then when you jump, you might accidentally hit one of those blocks, and then get a mushroom, and then the way that the mushroom hits the pipe over there, it'll come back and touch you, and it's like, what the heck? And then I mean, it's just like very quickly in just that very first part teaches you how to play the game, unknowingly. It's wild.
And those sorts of things are why for so long, and even now, I really hate games that have tutorial sections. Even when they bake the tutorial into the game itself. Like the first one that I remember playing, I know that was not the first one that's ever happened, but the first one I remember playing where it was like really baked into the experience of the game is Gears of War, the original Gears of War on Xbox 360. And it's really tutorial-y, and you could skip it, I think, even if I recall correctly. So that's cool, being able to skip it, but still, it breaks the fourth wall way too much for me, especially in narrative games like Gears of War and most of the other games where those kinds of tutorials appear.
Yep.
It's just, it breaks the immersion so much that I really appreciate it when a game can trust you to figure out how to play it. And I understand that these days that's hard because the market's so big and you have kids with no attention span, blah, 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 this, that, and the other, whatever. I don't care. It's my preference here we're talking about. No, does that make for successful games? I don't know. For me, yeah. So Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, it's just a fun game to play. Like, for example, like if you don't have the manual or anything, every once in a while you'll hit your opponent and like a star pops up out of their head. You're like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's a cool sound. It's like, so it grabs your attention, then you see it flashing. It's like, what is that? And if you pay attention, in the top right, the number goes up to 1 or whatever. And then you don't realize what to do until like you're playing and you're like, you're really going in, and then you accidentally bump the start button, and then you're like, and like, what is this? And then you figure out, oh, that's an uppercut. That's a special kind of thing. And then there's so many layers to this, because like understanding that, oh, I can uppercut, and then like you get one, and then you immediately try to use it, and they block it or they move out of the way because you're like you do it at wrong timing. And so timing's so important in this game. There's so many little subtle details that when you look at somebody playing the game, it looks boring. Like it really looks boring to watch somebody else play this game, unless you know a lot about the game. Like if you've never played it, it looks really boring. But when you're playing it, there's so many subtle things that combine to this really unique experience that like I don't know any other game that's got exactly that kind of magic to it. And some of that, of course, is my nostalgia of it being one of the first games I ever played and all that. But I just love this game to death. I really do. And it's, like I said, it's so much about timing. It's so much about understanding each opponent. Like each opponent's a different puzzle. How do they work? Yeah. Like the two that stand out in my mind the most as the most frustrating, because they're so really orthogonal, like, different than all of the other opponents, are King Hippo and Great Tiger. And this will be probably the last thing I say about it, because we probably need to move on. But so King Hippo, like you just can't beat him. Like when I was a kid trying to play and beat him, I could not beat King Hippo, and I didn't know why. I didn't realize that you couldn't do anything to him. He blocks everything, and like hitting him in the stomach doesn't do anything. You have to wait until like he opens his mouth and hit his mouth. That hurts him, and then like you can just go to town on his stomach. But that's just so interesting because it's not intuitive. And so that creates a challenge where you're like, I got to beat this. And you just like, you drive yourself more into it instead of being turned away from it. I'm sure some people were probably turned away from it, but not me. I'm like, no, I've gotten this far. Mm-hmm. And then Great Tiger's the same thing, where it's like he feels easy because he's right after King Hippo. He feels easy because like you can get hits in like really, really good. And then like maybe even the first round you can knock him down a couple times. But then second round he comes out and he does his special move, and then you're done. If you don't know how to deal with that, you're done.
Right, yeah.
And it's like he's just moving so fast and hitting you so hard. And like the timing on that is super precise. And the thing is, like, until you play the rest of the game, you don't know what he's doing is teaching. It's another tutorial moment where he's teaching about hyper precise timing that you need for later ones, like Sandman, Macho Man, all those guys. Because like if you don't have that kind, and especially Mike Tyson, oh my goodness, like, you can't beat Mike Tyson unless you have almost frame perfect timing. That's why I love this game, because it's like, it's really like a tutorial for how to learn how to speed run old games. because you have to understand all these little specific things. And if you're not of that mindset, I can understand hating this game. I really can. But I just love it to death. I think it's a really, really great and well-crafted video game.
I am not going to lie. I have never thought about that game in depth. So that's actually really cool. Those are some really cool observations there about that.
Yeah, and I love how it just doesn't care if it beats the crap out of you. Right? It's like, well, that's like a lot of old Nintendo games, right? Like Contra, I can't think of any great other good examples off the top of my head. Those ones that I played the most that I'm just like, man, this is tough. Yeah. But I like that kind of style of game where it's like you can iterate on it really fast. And that was the cool thing. You had the codes so you could skip sections of the game if you weren't able to beat a certain boxer. But you can iterate on it and you can clearly get better. And it's like you feel yourself getting better. And then objectively you're getting better because you start beating more of the opponents until you get to Mike Tyson, and it takes forever to figure out how to whoop him. Yeah. And the problem with Mike Tyson too, and this is something that you don't get tested as much with the other boxers, is patience. Not only do you have to have extremely good timing, because like some of the earlier ones, like you can get good timing and then you get this rhythm about just doing the timing, and you do it really fast. But Mike Tyson, you have to wait and think. And then, okay, now go, that sort of a thing. And so it's a really, really interesting how they set that up.
That's super cool.
Okay. So Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Wonderful video game. Love it to death.
I like this. This is cool, XERAEN, because I actually don't really know what the heck you're going to pick here. I know a couple, but I have no idea what some of these are going to be. So
I think that's the only one that's going to surprise you.
Okay.
The rest of them probably won't. So the next game on this list, and now that we've gotten the classic game out of the way, most of the rest of these aren't necessarily classic, although some kids these days, me and my rocking chair up here on the porch saying, would think that a couple of these are considered retro games, but it's hard for me to feel them as retro games. But not today, though. Today is newer games. Catherine.
Oh, yeah.
Is one of my favorite video games.
Heck yeah, bro.
So, this is one of those games where, like, if you looked at the cover, you would be like, "What?"
Same.
And think that the game is about something that it's not about. And that's part of what was 100% their marketing strategy around this game, Atlas. And so, for those of you who don't know, Atlas is the same company that makes the Persona series, the Shin Megami Tensei series, which is very closely related to the Persona series. And this has a lot of those same flavors that their other games have. Although it's not a strict role-playing game like those games are. Catherine, again, is a puzzle game. But you wouldn't know it by looking at the marketing material. You wouldn't really know it by looking at the cover in any sense, unless you looked at the back, maybe in red on that about the game. But the thing that I really like about this game, and that I do appreciate about basically all of the Atlas games, is that they are very much influenced by Jungian psychology, so Carl Jung. I mean, even in most of the games, they have like quotations from different philosophers or people throughout history, and Jung is quoted several times in Catherine and in the Persona series as well. I mean, the idea of the persona, I don't know if that was a Freudian idea or a Jungian idea. I can't recall now, but that's a psychological concept, right? That who you are out in the world is not really who you are. It's your persona. It's who you put out there. You want people to believe that you are.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to Catherine. You would think that it's about a guy who's just like infatuated with this hot girl or whatever, and it's really not that. It's about how do people think about and conceptualize their relationships in life, not just romantic relationships, but relationships with their friends and their community around them. That's one of the biggest things that I think gets overlooked in Catherine, is that it's a game about how the individual sees him or herself inside of their community, how they can come to know and sympathize with other members, and sometimes empathize with other members of their community, and get that attachment to it. Because it's hard to talk about this game without like serious spoilers. So I'll just say, if you've not played Catherine, just go play it if you're interested in it. If you're not interested in it, I guess listen to the spoilers. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite parts about this game, the way that it works, let me just basically break it down, is that there's kind of three parts to this game. There is full motion video, and it's like an anime style, right? And so there's voice acting with it, and so there's the full motion video part where it's just kind of you're watching some of the game happen. You're not really interacting with those parts, but there's significant portions that are just like that to kind of give you context, etc. Especially at the beginning of the game to kind of set stuff up. Then there's there's parts where you're like in a bar every night. So this game takes place over a series of days. I guess kind of like Persona, the series does, but it's not precisely linked to time, or more precisely linked to time like Persona is. It's just this. It's this day. It's that day. It's the other day. And so every day you go to the bar with your friends and just hang out. And it's really neat because you have a drink and you can order a different drink when you finish your drink. And I mean, you have a button to even take a drink of your drink. Yeah, right. And the more you drink, the drunker you get. But that has impact on other parts of the game. The bar is really fleshed out. There's like an arcade game. You can go and play the arcade game. You can talk to everybody who's at the bar, including the server there, Erica, the bartender boss. And then the other people, as you stay there at night, people come and go and leave. And so if you aren't very careful and paying attention to who's at the bar at what time, you're going to potentially miss part of the story. That's why I really love replaying this game, is that I don't know, my last playthrough, I think I may have hit everything, but I want to play it again to be sure. But almost every time I would replay this game, I would find somebody new that I didn't see at a certain point in the game come in, and I could talk to them and I can get some of the narrative that I didn't get. It doesn't necessarily add a lot to it, but it's interesting from a completionist perspective to do that.
I really love that in games where, stuff like BioShock, how you find the little whatever recorder things, and a lot of that stuff isn't, some of it's important, but a lot of it isn't necessarily important, but it's really cool to hear just more tidbits about what's going on in that world,
right?
Or games where you find little journal pages or something like that.
Yes,
super cool.
Exactly.
Little details.
And I think that a lot of people miss the intent behind a lot of the stories in a lot of games by missing some of those. Mm-hmm. BioShock's a really good example of that. So for Kathleen, the third kind of part of the game is really the main part of the game. It's the game part of the game. It's a puzzle game. So basically, every night you go to sleep in your apartment, and then you're dreaming, and you're playing yourself in a dream. But it's like a nightmare where you're having to traverse these stairs or I don't know what you would call them, but they're like constructions with cubes, and you have to climb them, push them around, and different things happen. And the goal is to climb all the way to the top to get out so that you can wake up and not die in your sleep. Because that's what's going on. It's the story on the news. Like in the bar, there's a TV and there's news on the TV, where, people are found dead in their bed because they died in their sleep, and it's what's going on? And there's a rumored reason why this is happening, and you got to talk to people, and then some people are worried about it, some people are acting like they're not worried about it, some people are oblivious, and it's but then you start so in the dream though, you're a sheep. Well, you look, everybody else looks like a sheep, and to everybody else you look like a sheep, which is interesting. But then these sheep start sounding like people that you've heard before, and start having items of clothing on that you've seen before and things like that. And so you start making connections that a lot of these other sheep are the people in the bar. Again, this is extreme spoilers we're probably going to get into. Anyway, I don't really want to go too much into it, but the idea of this game is not that, there's two girls named Catherine. There's a Catherine with the K, Catherine with the C. Catherine with the C is the blonde that you see on the main cover art. Catherine with the K is a brunette that the main character, Vincent, is dating throughout the game. That's his actual girlfriend. And then he doesn't really seem to like her too much. And she doesn't really seem to like him too much, but they really think that they're just a good match and should get married. But he doesn't really want to, because he's just non-committal, like a lot of guys are, and she's very overbearing, like some girls can be, about well, look, if we're serious about this relationship, we need to be serious about this relationship. And so like he's just kind of annoyed by that, and he kind of has this sort of subconscious wish, and you don't know this until Catherine really shows up and it gets acted out that he could be with somebody else. And so Catherine shows up at the bar one night when he's alone after his friends have left, and anyway, he gets real drunk. What happened? Like, then he goes through one of the nightmare scenarios, wakes up, Catherine's in his bed. What's going on here? Like, and then so it's this whole resolution of how does he resolve whatever may have happened? He doesn't remember with Catherine with the C, with Catherine with the K. And does he really want to continue this relationship with Catherine with the K versus move on with Catherine with the C, or do nothing? That's the gist of the game, and that plays out in a psychological analysis of yourself. That's what I really love about this game, is that it's a more or less roughly Jungian analysis of your own psyche based on the things you do in the game, the decisions you make. And there's at the end of every level, you answer a question that gets asked of you by this disembodied voice, and then there's like this meter that's like going between two extremes. Basically, those extremes are order and chaos. Order being like, settle down, get married, have a family with Catherine with the K. Chaos being, no, I want to just have fun, run loose, and be with Catherine with the C. Or if you're undecided, it's kind of somewhere in the middle. And it plays out a bunch of different endings. I won't spoil like how Catherine came to be in Vincent's life or any of that kind of stuff, because that gets revealed. Very interesting stuff happens at the end of the game. Well worth a playthrough. One of my favorite games. The biggest thing that I want to finish this on, as far as like telling why I love this game, is just the atmosphere of the bar and how much that plays into the secondary and tertiary meanings of the game, that it's important for an individual to have relations to their friends and have those bonds, and have relations to their community and have those bonds, and understand that, because you kind of get like different people die throughout the game. So like you kind of get that emotional punch when it's like a character that you really like and they may end up dying, but they might not. So it's like interesting, to say the least. Yeah,
that's a great game. I honestly don't think I have beaten the whole thing more than once. I should probably do that. I looked up like videos and stuff of it, so I saw some of the other like endings and everything. But
yeah, you should make sure you watch all the endings, because that's really interesting.
Yeah,
some like the extreme chaos ending is funny and cool, and but I would have been sad if that had been the first ending I got.
But yeah, that is a great game, and the music's really good. Like,
oh my goodness,
freaking that bar music, like,
yes,
that could just be like playing in the background of my life as I'm just navigating life, just on repeat. It's so good. It's so good.
It just sets the mood so good. Yeah. And like the subtle things, like you're in the bar and you can just hear like some glasses clinking in the background every once in a while. And it's like, it's not on a loop. It's obviously not a loop. It's obviously not part of the music. It's obviously just kind of random and simulated for like people stuff. And if there's fewer people in the bar, less of that happens. If there's more, I don't know if you've noticed it, but if there's more people in the bar, more of that happens. And it's like, it's so many little subtle details like that that just give you this sense of really being in this world.
Yeah, I love stuff like that where they clearly went above and beyond. Like they totally, it could have just been, just some generic thing there, but it's definitely not that. Like they gave it life,
Yes.
I think that's what I like most in games, is when I feel like I'm getting sucked into this world. It's not just okay, I mean, well, this is cool, everything looks cool, but I don't really feel like, it has life to it. But like some games, I just feel like, holy crap, this is like a living, breathing thing here on this friggin' disc. Like it's wild.
Exactly right. I agree with that statement 100%. And this is one of those games that just it's so vivid in its reality that it's just interesting. Very cool game. 100% worth the playthrough. I've not played the full body version, because apparently there's there's a new version that came out that has a third Catherine in it. And so I need to play that because I love this game so much. Making the time to do it.
I haven't heard anything about that one. So I have no idea if it's good or bad, but
Well, even if people say it's bad, I'm still going to play it at some point to see, because like this can't be one of my favorite games and me not do that.
Right.
Okay. Moving on. The next game is another one of those games where unless you play the game, you really don't understand the appeal of the game. It's hard. Maybe you think the appeal is one thing, but it's really something else. So that game is Bayonetta. This game, I don't. Obviously, you look at the cover of the game, and similarly to Catherine, you think that, okay, well, they're just trying to sell this game based on the character. And of course, to some degree, yes, they are doing that. But the reality of it is, if even these were just like stick figures in this game, and like every character was a stick figure, and it had all the same production otherwise, it would still be the great game that I think that it is.
Yes.
Definitely. And like, when the intro sequence of the game, this is the tutorial sequence of Bayonetta, which it's not a tutorial sequence really much at all. It is so immersive, but immersive in a way that's like, it shouldn't be immersive. This shouldn't be real. There's no way this is happening. It's not, reality doesn't work this way. Yeah. And it's like, but you can accept it, and you just don't like, reject it out of hand. So like, I'll just mention what that is. Like, you start and like you see Bayonetta, and she's like standing on top of like this tower, and then like you're like, oh, that's cool. And then it zooms out, and then you see that tower is like falling through space at like a ridiculous pace, and she's just standing on it, and then it tilts over, and then she's just standing sideways, and then walks around on top of it. What is going on here? Like, okay, this person can defy gravity. This person can like control themselves at high velocities and not really be affected by some parts of physics. And then it's like, what the heck's going on? And then like, so all these beings start materializing out of nowhere, and they're like golden, and they have wings, and they have like these like staffs, and like then they start flying at you, and then like throwing like magic stuff at you, and then you're like, what's this? And then like you're just walking around like you're on a catwalk or a walkway as a model or something. Like, what? And like just so calm, and just like then you start punching things and kicking things, and then so this is like kind of a beat 'em up, I guess is what it is. Yeah. You would say like a combo focused beat 'em up, kind of like Devil May Cry, or I don't know any other games that are 3D like this that do this kind of thing, but I guess Devil May Cry is a good example.
What is that? Dynasty Warriors? Is that another one?
Is that like that?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I've never played that series, but I've seen.
Yeah. So anyway, it's that kind of a game, and the whole point of this game is that it's over the top. And it's like, it has a really interesting narrative if you will dig for it and try to focus on it, but it's so hard to focus on it because everything is just flashing lights and loud sounds and awesome music and just one-liner quips. And it's like the kind of bombastic awesomeness that makes something like Army of Darkness as a movie really cool and just like out there, and really any of the earlier Evil Dead stuff, but especially Army of Darkness, because that kind of became real self-aware about it. Although Evil Dead 2 really did too, which I think is better than Army of Darkness, and we can talk about that. We need to talk about that in the podcast at some point too. But if you haven't seen Army of Darkness, by the way, you don't have to see the other Evil Dead movies. Just go see Army of Darkness. Worth a watch. That kind of bombastic, over-the-top, self-aware, not just self-aware, but it's like, I know this is what I am, and guess what? I'm more than this. I'm this too, and I'm this, and I'm that. And it's like, so basically you're a witch, and you're fighting the hordes of heaven. So it's like angels and all of these different seraphim and whatever coming at you, and like you're battling it. And the coolest part about this, not the coolest part, one of the coolest parts about this game is that every time you meet a new enemy you haven't seen before, there's like this whole intro sequence where like the enemy like does this cool thing, and then like it zooms in and like it shows you their name, and then like it closes them into a book. And it's like, it's just so well produced, and like there's always something grabbing your attention somewhere here, there, or the other. And like I said, there's kind of like Mike Tyson's Punch Out. There's so many layers to this thing. There's the layer of the narrative. There's the layer of the visual aesthetic that you're seeing, and then there's the layer of the distractions around you. Because like when you're still fighting, there's still stuff going on in the scene, in the levels in the background too that you can see sometimes. There's the focus on the fighting. There's the actual combo aspect of things, and that in and of itself, if this were like a black box game, or like white box game, whatever the term is, where like there's no graphics or anything, and you're just like the things. The entities, like the hitboxes, basically fighting each other. It would still be interesting for the combo aspect of it too. But then certain enemies have weapons, and you can hit them, and they can drop their weapons. You can pick up their weapons. Well, the weapons aren't just like little swords and shields and stuff like that. They're like gigantic, huge, like hammers that are like 8 times the size of you, and you're like, you pick up this huge hammer, and you're like carrying it around, and it's so over the top, and it's so awesome.
Dude, we've kind of talked about this before, but like I love it when games like are just so self-aware of what they are, and they lean all the way into it as hard as they can. It's so good. Like Saints Row 3, I think, is what we talked about before, and how like I Grand Theft Auto is fun. Like I love Grand Theft Auto, but like when you play Grand Theft Auto, you just want to mess around and you want to blow stuff up and act psychotic and like all this crazy stuff. And right. I feel like Saints Row the Third, just like it's like, yeah, that's what this game is. That's absolutely what this is, and that the narrative of the game, it's exactly that. This is as over the top as humanly possible. Oh, by the way, Burt Reynolds is the mayor. And all this other stuff that's just out in left field, like makes absolutely no sense at all, but it totally makes sense. Every aspect of it makes sense, even though it doesn't. It's so good.
And that's the thing is like, throughout Bayonetta, you start fighting like bigger and weirder and stranger demons, not demons, the angels. It's all angels. That's what's so interesting about this game too. It's kind of flipped in that sense, is that like all of the and the narrative, it makes total sense. And like if you read the narrative stuff that you can find and like kind of put together the cutscenes and stuff, and I'm sure the second and third games expound on this more, and I still have not played those, and I'm remiss for not doing so. I still feel like I want to replay the first game one more time before I start the second one. Well, the third game's not out yet, so I need to play the second one before the third game comes out. Anyway, there's good reason for all of this, and the angels aren't as angelic as you would think based on a lot of the writings and stuff that you can read in the game. But and so it just keeps escalating. And then again, spoilers. If you don't want spoilers for Bayonetta, the first one, just skip over the next few minutes. The final boss of the game is God. And so like you actually, I get, what is it called? Deus or whatever, but God, it's God. And there's just a whole sequence where like basically you're fighting God in outer space, more or less. And I don't know what else to say about
water
this game.
Just almost emerged out of my mouth and went over everything I own in front of me.
Yeah.
It would have been tragic. It's just,
there's like no meaning to this game in that sense. Like, whereas I think that there is some meaning, serious meaning to be derived from Catherine. I don't think that there's much meaning to be derived from Bayonetta's narrative even, other than it's fun to just go wild sometimes. And it's also fun to appreciate aesthetics. But the other thing, here's another one of the way over the top things. Like her outfit that's all black, that's her hair. That's not, it's not clothes, it's her actual hair. And not only that, it can turn into like different things, and she can attack with her hair. It's like, what is this? How similar to how you've said in the past, I want to have been in that room, that boardroom where they were like, okay, hear me out. This chick's going to have hair. And yeah, most chicks have hair. No. Her hair's her clothes. What? No, she's got really long hair and it's her clothes. Okay, but why? Because it's magic and she can fight people with it.
I freaking love the concept of thinking about a bunch of serious people in a meeting surrounding like a very serious meeting boardroom table or something, talking about that, or like discussing, all right, when they're planning out the new Mortal Kombat, all right, hear me out. So we're going to amp this up the next level. When you punch this person in the arm, it's going to x-ray their arm and you're going to see all their bones crumpling, and then you're going to do like an uppercut, and then you can see like all of their guts move around and their rib cage break in half. Like it's just like this like totally serious real world thing, and they're discussing something so ridiculous. It's great. I love it.
That's my favorite part about the newer Mortal Kombat games is like that X-ray thing, because it's like you crush somebody's skull and then it's like they get up like nothing happened.
Right. And that again, 100%. That's another thing where they just totally lean in, like they are so self-aware of like, this is what this is. Lean into it. It makes no sense, but it makes all the sense in the world.
Right. So yeah, but that Bayonetta, it's just it's a game that on so many levels is aesthetically pleasing to me, and you can't help but laugh playing that game. Like it's supposed to be a really serious story, and in some ways it is, but I know that they don't really mean it to come off that way, and it's clear that they don't mean it to come off that way.
Yeah.
And that's why it feels okay to laugh, even though, you know, like there's like this little girl that you're trying to protect, and it's like, well, that's like serious, like, you know, the little girl's being threatened, and it's like that's not really a laughable thing, but the whole context for how lots of the things happen around the little girl, it is funny, and it's like, oh man. And I'm sure if I were to take the time, there's probably some deeper psychological significance to a lot of the things that they present, but it's like, you don't even have to do that to really enjoy this game. It's just, it's a good game. If you haven't played Bayonetta, play it. If you can't get over the fact that it's seemingly, I'll just say it, over-sexualized, well, you don't understand really what the game's going for. That's a marketing ploy. Of course, I can admit that. I understand that. But that's not why this game is good. And like I said at the beginning, if it were just stick figures, it would still be as good of a game.
100%. I would absolutely play a game with stick figures going wild and all the stuff that happens in Bayonetta. 1,000%.
Well, I mean, that would be basically Zhao Zhao, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The little, for anybody who's never seen, like, man, we're old. Like, there's probably people listening that have like never ever, that have no idea what Newgrounds is, one, but two, like never heard of Zhao Zhao. So like it's like this little anime thing back in the day where it's like two stick figures fighting, and it's like, and that sounds boring, but it's not, like, because it's like so much over the top stuff. It's the same sort of thing as Bayonetta, where like, you know, like there's like, it's all like 2D and it's all like hand drawn, but then like, you know, one will uppercut the other and then it'll break through the top frame, and then they'll pick up a piece of the frame and start, you know, jabbing the other with it, and you know, just wild stuff like that. Anyway, that's the same spirit that's in Catherine.
Yeah.
I'm Catherine Bathan Bayonetta.
Right. For some reason, I knew exactly what you were talking about, but my brain does this thing where I understand what somebody is saying, so it doesn't even acknowledge the fact that what was said was just totally inaccurate. But,
right. That's how we process things faster. We tokenize in our mind.
Right.
But yeah, I was looking at my list here, and I was reading Catherine as I said it. But all right. So Bayonetta. Anything else you want to say about Bayonetta before we move on?
Platinum like totally nailed that game, 1,000%. And just a side note, if you've what is the name of that Transformers game?
War for Cybertron?
No, Devastation? Is that what it is? Transformers Devastation? Yeah, so Platinum Games made a Transformers game. It is so unbelievably Transformers G1, like it's phenomenal. If you like Transformers, like the original Transformers, and you like Bayonetta, 1,000% play this game because it's so good. It's not very long, but it's just like, it's so like, it has that same ridiculous and kind of over the top, you know, like the combo system is so satisfying. And that's another thing about Bayonetta is when you really learn how to fight in that game, it's just so satisfying to pull off all those combos and all those moves and stuff.
And the whole thing where like you can get really good at understanding the like magnetic mechanics, where like you're fighting one enemy and then another enemy gets just close enough, and then you can switch and keep the combo going on this other enemy, and then you can do it like back and forth, and it's super cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I love that they got Stan Bush to do some of the music for it.
That's awesome.
He did the I'm pretty sure this is the game where he did the credits theme for it, unless I'm thinking of War for Cybertron. Regardless, it has a lot of really good music in it. Lots of like really super fast heavy metal, you know,
nice.
Really, really good stuff.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I probably should play that game because that's something that's up my alley.
Yeah.
All right, so last game that I'll cheat and say, And one of the things I guess I should have mentioned before going through this list, kind of the rules I went by is that I wasn't going to mention Magic the Gathering Online, because that definitely would be just because I love Magic, and it's not really a video game. It's just a different way to play a paper card game. So anyway, I've talked enough about Magic that I'm sure people understand how much I love Magic. And I'm not going to mention games I haven't completed, because that's kind of silly to say it was one of my favorite games. There are some games I've not completed that I feel like that I've watched all the way through, that I know how it goes, and that I know that it would probably be one of my favorite games. I don't know if it would displace anything on this list, though. But the other thing was that most of the games that I pick have, I really enjoy narrative heavy things, and things that have narratives that make you think and have further implications beyond just the simple story that it's telling. That influences, I think, every pick on this, except for Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. But it definitely influences the next pick. And I didn't want to pick, more than one game in the same series, and that's relevant to this next one, and definitely relevant to my top 3. But this game is Portal, which is an amazing video game. That and I picked Portal and not Portal 2, which you can argue that Portal 2 has a much better narrative, actually has much more of a narrative. Of course, that's true. You can argue that Portal 2 has better mechanics. Maybe that's true. I don't know how I feel about that necessarily. There's certainly more variety of mechanics in Portal 2. They have more, and allows them to make more interesting puzzles. You can argue that, and I would probably agree with that. But there's something special about the original Portal game in its simplicity and its subversion of expectation. Yep. Because you don't, you're going into Portal 2, assuming you've played Portal 1, which you should have. If you've played Portal 2 and you didn't play Portal 1, you made a mistake. But going into Portal 2, you know kind of what you're in for in some way or another. In some ways, you're really not, because they do so much over-the-top cool stuff in the second one that it's like, okay, I had my expectations subverted yet again. But the original Portal game, you think that, okay, this is just like a puzzle game. Again, puzzles. I really love puzzle games, but I love puzzle games that are wrapped up in other things. You think there's no narrative to this. You think that it's a real simple game. So you go and you start playing it, and it's like, oh, cool, I really have to think about some of these things and really take my time and figure out how to beat these puzzles. And then you realize this robot or whatever it is that's telling me what to do is kind of snarky a little bit. And then like she starts saying stuff, it's like, what? And then she says stuff like, well, that's really funny, but like, in this context, does that make sense for her to be saying? And then it just keeps going deeper and just like, and then starts being clear that like she has animosity toward you. And then it's like, what in the heck? What did I do? I just woke up. I'm just walking around with this gun shooting portals at walls and walking through wormholes or whatever I'm doing. And then you, again, spoilers if you've not played Portal, which how have you not played Portal? Play Portal. You get to the end, and then the very end of the last puzzle, it's this like cart thing that's taking you down into fire, and you're like, what? And it's like you just die if you don't do anything. But if you're astute, you realize, oh wait, there's a little ridge up there. I could put a portal there. I can put a portal here. I can jump up there, and then you do it, and then you realize, oh wait, I can get out of this, and then the game begins. Yeah, right. Because like before that, it's just teaching you mostly how to play the game and giving you some comic relief. And then like you really realize, oh wait, I can go behind, and then you start going behind all the puzzles, and it's I mean, if you play Portal, there's not much more to talk about, because it's not like there's some profound point or anything to Portal like there might be to something like Catherine. But it's so cool that the game really isn't what the game sold itself to be. And I love things like that. Mm-hmm. Not just the subversion of the expectation, but also the audacity to put, and only Valve could have done it, and only could they have done it in this context where they're releasing a bunch of other games, because it came out in Orange Box, which originally, which was part of a set of games. So when you bought it, you didn't just get Portal, you got other stuff too. And so it's a pretty short experience, relatively speaking. But I still love the audacity of putting out a game where it's like, the whole point of the game is to mess with you. Yeah. Like literally that's the point. It's in one aspect. I mean, of course there's the puzzle stuff. To me, somebody of my kind of thinking about the world and feeling about the world, the puzzle aspect's so much fun. I just really enjoyed it. I think a lot of people did too. But I think some people, the narrative of it really drives them more than the puzzles. Well, if they get to that point. But yeah, it's just such a great game.
I really like the puzzles. That's one of those games where I like puzzle games where when you figure the puzzle out, it feels like such an accomplishment. It's not just like, oh, finally, or something like that. And a lot of Zelda puzzles are like that too, where like it's a very creative solution. Like you feel like you actually, you didn't just happen to figure out blah 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 or whatever. It's like you had to actually be creative to figure out how to solve the puzzle.
Yeah, it doesn't give you the sense that it was a puzzle that was created for you to solve.
Right, yeah.
That you just found yourself somewhere and you had to adapt to understand how to overcome.
Exactly.
Yeah, Portal does that greatly. What is there to say about Portal that hasn't already been said? There's so much about the quirky humor in it, the dark humor of GLaDOS, just the fact that GLaDOS exists. And like the whole, not even really knowing the purpose of this facility, but the fact that that's aware that you're not known, but you're really not told. And it's like keeping the questioning going even beyond the game. It's interesting.
Yeah. I think that's another game where there's so much life in it. Like and it's really cool to me. Like even like, it doesn't have to be a game, whether it's like a movie or anything like that, any kind of story where you feel like you're in this world. And then all of a sudden, like something happens and you're able to take a step back and you realize, wow, this is like way bigger than I thought it was. And it's like really cool to me about like how you go back behind the puzzles and you see like how things are, like how things are working or whatever, behind the scenes and everything like that.
How like these like arms will push out different tiles from inside and all you see is the tile come out on the inside, but you get to see the arm on the
right. Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, that is a super well designed, just like little experience, really. Like, I mean, it's just, it's like something like PT, which we could talk about for the next hour and a half.
Yes,
like it's like this thing that had just like so much love and thought put into it. That it's crazy, it's wild. Like it lives and it breathes.
And I think that they did a wonderful job, and this is all I'll talk about Portal 2. They did a wonderful job of making the character of GLaDOS so strong that they were able to carry so much of the second game with her just being right in your face the whole time.
Yeah.
And if she had not been such a strong, dense character in that way, it would have been boring. It would have come off as, and if she hadn't been so antagonistic towards you in the first game, there would have been really nothing for them to hang on in the second game with her being basically part of your gun for most, or a good deal of the second game. And then it's like, how do you, of course the idea is, well, how do we have a GLaDOS 2.0 for Portal 2? And then it's like, the whole idea of GLaDOS is she's this like hyper intelligent, ultra understanding and all seeing being, digital being, whatever. How do you improve on that? Well, they improve on it by putting somebody who's kind of dumb in front of you with Wheatley. Mm-hmm. But is he dumb? That's another one of those subversion of expectations. And it's like, it goes from this whole like Terminator robot calculating thing where that GLaDOS is, to kind of this whole, like I guess kind of even the T-2000, if you think about it, from Terminator 2, where he would blend in as being looking like, other people, sounding like other people, and could pull people's hearts to him in a way that, the Terminator, the T-1000 couldn't.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that evolution where GLaDOS is cold and calculating and just like a machine, and Wheatley exercises some of these darker human characteristics of deceit and like putting out there that, oh, I'm just kind of this little dumb guy with a British accent, and then it's like, no, he's just like this really Machiavellian sort of figure where he's like manipulating things to happen in his own way. Oh, again, kind of spoilers for Portal 2, but it's just brilliant writing, especially Portal 2 is brilliant writing to pick up and understand where to go from where Portal 1 left off. Because I think I thought, and I would expect most people thought at the end of Portal 1, it's like, how do you make a Portal 2? Like you could make the puzzles, but how do you make the cool narrative aspect of Portal 2? I think it did a great job with it.
Yeah, I really like that like older area in Portal 2, like just all the like the announcements on like the intercom system and whatever, just like all those little details that I don't know, it's so good. Like again, they took everything that worked about Portal 2 and they just like they kept going with it. You know, it's not just like it's not like some unnecessary sequel. Like I hate that kind of stuff. It's like it actually like it feels great and it makes sense.
Well, in some ways, it feels even like the same game.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, I think, what's really cool about it. It doesn't feel like, okay, well, here's the new and improved stuff. Although you do have the new and improved stuff, but it doesn't really give you that sense going through it, playing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my 4 picks for my number 6, 5, and 4. My top 6.
That was an excellent list, XERAEN.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I
excellent choices.
It was tough, man. Like there's literally probably another dozen games that could have been, especially in that section of this list, that maybe at some point we'll have a chance and opportunity to talk about in the future. But narrowing it down was tough in some ways.
I totally understand that.
Cool.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to discuss before we land the plane here?
Not really, other than I am definitely looking forward to your top 3. I think I can guess at least one of them, maybe 2. I don't know. I'm thinking I can.
2.
I'd have to think about it, but I know I can guess one of them.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly looking forward to that.
I've talked about 2 of them recently, in one way, shape, or form. So
true. Yeah. Okay.
So spoilers. Anyway.
Right.
All right, XERAEN. Where can all the people of cyberspace land find you out there in cyberspace land?
Well, aside from going to hyperpixelpodcast.net that you see over there, which you can find obviously all the stuff for this podcast and links to our stuff, you can go directly to XERAEN.net, XERAEN.net, and that will take you to a effectively a link tree of mine that shows you all the other various places in the cyberspaces where you can see my faces. Wait, no, I only have one face. I don't know. Yeah. XERAEN.net, XERAEN.net.
Love it. And likewise, if you are into vocal covers, if you're watching this on YouTube, you've probably seen like all of the MichaelK vocal covers that we've done on there. But if you're into vocal covers, if you're into video game music, if you're into retro nostalgia, whatever the heck we got going on over on social media platforms, if you go to michaelk.net/links, it will just spell it all out for you, and you can just pick and choose whatever suits your fancy. You can go for it there. So excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Well, XERAEN has been excellent. It has been fantastic. I enjoyed this insight. It was good.
I'm happy to talk about it. And I'm happy to talk at length about any of these such things that I like. So I champ at the bit of the opportunity to do so.
I love it. Well, CyberSpace, thank you so much for joining us. It has been another excellent adventure here on the CyberPixel Podcast, and we will see.
Wait!
Whoa!
The
CyberPixel? What the heck is happening? The CyberPixel, the HyperPixel.
You're merging worlds.
Whoa! I think I was just hacked by somebody 100 years in the future. He's trying to emerge. The HyperPixel Podcast. Excuse me. Goodness gracious. Anyway, Cyberspace Land. It has been excellent. And we will see you next time. Peace.